Hello everyone, it's Jazz here, and today I'm here with my July monthly reading wrap-up. I'm super excited because I actually did read my 4 books for the month. That is usually my goal. Kind of did not do that in June, but I got to it in July. I got my life together. And also I'm excited because there were some really good books this month. Let's go ahead and talk about them. The first book that I completed in the month of July was the audiobook of the novel A Long Way Down by Nick Hornby. So this is a sort of odd, quirky little novel, and it's about 4 people who go up on the top of this tall building and they are totally intending to commit suicide. But because they meet each other, they kind of feel awkward doing that in front of anyone else. And they decide, instead of committing suicide, to sort of wait it out and see if they can kind of help each other through life. I decided kind of late last year that I definitely had to read this book this year because I watched the film version of it and I really love the film. I highly suggest watching the film if you can. I think it's still on Netflix. I definitely had to go and give the book a go, and I decided to listen to it in audiobook because it is written in the 4 perspectives of the 4 different characters. There's 2 male characters and 2 female characters, and they each get kind of their own sections of their story, and they're in first person. So I thought it would be kind of a cool audiobook, and I had some credits on audible.com, and I thought, why not go with it? I really love this in audiobook. I'm sure it would have been just as fun to read just in normal book form, but I found the audiobook so excellent just because they had 3 readers so that they could have like a female reader for both the female characters, and then they had like a British man and a American man to read the 2 guy parts in the story, and I thought that was such a cool way to go about it. I found the book just so funny because the dialogue is so witty. The readers really express that very well. I might have scared people a couple times by laughing out loud. Definitely a very humorous book despite the subject matter that it sort of centers around, but it doesn't make fun of the subject matter, so you don't have to worry about that. It just sort of is like, you know, when life is kind of lame, you feel the need to use sarcasm, or at least I do. So that's what those characters are kind of doing in their lives. It's definitely different from the film, but it's not too different, so I suggest reading and watching both of them, and just, yeah, A Long Way Down is fun and awesome, and so I gave it 5 stars. The next book that I completed was Anne of Avonlea by Lucy Maud Montgomery, and this is the 2nd book in the Anne of Green Gables series. This book centers around basically her mid to late teens, so she's teaching school and kind of figuring life out. This was a reread for me. I read Anne of Green Gables sort of earlier in May, I believe, and I just decided to read the 2nd one because, you know, the Anne Shirley universe just makes me so flipping happy. I just love everything about these books and just the fun stuff that happens in them. Even the sad parts are never like too sad, so it's just a good, fun way to read a classic novel. So of course I gave this book 5 stars. Side note, because there's always a funny story this year lately with these books. I can't wait to see what happens when I read the 3rd one. But the funny story for this one is that I met a girl named Anne that was like a friend of one of my mom's music students. And she looked kind of like Anne Shirley because she literally had red hair and freckles and like the thin face. I mean, she looked like the picture on here. I'm not kidding. And I probably should have kept that to myself. But, yeah, I told this stranger, oh my gosh, you totally look like Anne Shirley and her name is Anne. Yeah, she had no idea what I was talking about, and I was minorly looking weird and hilarious. But you know what? Maybe she'll read the books and love them because her name is totally appropriate and she should. The next book that I completed was a graphic novel, and it was the 1st book in the XMen You Are series. So the title kind of says it all with this one. It's basically the characters of X-Men and what would happen if they were set in an alternate reality that's sort of based on film noir or kind of Pulp Fiction writing. I personally did not think it was that awesome. The idea of it is really interesting. I thought it was kind of cool how they lined up certain elements from the original sort of X-Men world into this world. It has these really cool sort of interesting inserts that are like a short story that's supposed to be written by Trask in it, which kind of reminded me of the little news inserts from Watchmen, which I thought were kind of cool, and I actually might have liked better than the actual comic book parts. And there was kind of an interesting twist, but my problem with this was really in the execution of it. The storyline is kind of messy. This could be because of the main thing that bothers me, and the main thing that bothers me is just how flippin' dark they did the artwork. I mean, I literally could not tell what characters looked like or what was happening half the time because it was so dark on the page. And I would have really preferred, if they were going to go noir with it, that they just go black and white. Kind of like the book cover or something like Sin City. It's in black and white, it's noir, it's dark, but I can actually still tell what's happening if you just go black and white with it. Whereas this, as I showed you, I can't tell what anything looks like. So that bothered me, and a lot of times I didn't really like how they laid out the talking bubbles or the panels. That made it very confusing. I did sort of get used to the darkness and the layout after a while, so I guess it sort of evened out in the end, but I really shouldn't have had to get used to it. Another thing that wasn't really my cup of tea in this was that the X-Men don't have powers in this just because of the setting of where it is, and I don't know that that really works for X-Men. They tried to kind of write the powers that the X-Men would have into the personalities of the characters, which is an interesting choice. It just didn't really float my boat. Yeah, I didn't fall in love with this. I gave it 3 stars, so it was okay. It was definitely entertaining, but it wasn't my favorite book ever. But the good thing that kind of came out of this is there are other noir subject matters in the Marvel Universe, and I would really be interested in reading those. Maybe not X-Men, but I would really be interested in reading the Daredevil noir one because I feel like Daredevil would really suit noir style sort of storytelling. So I would really like that because the idea of this is really interesting. So I will maybe try out some of the other noir stories, but this one just like, yeah, I'm probably not going to continue with it. The last book that I finished in the month of July was House, which was written by both Frank Peretti and Ted Decker. This is a book about 4 strangers, yet again, who kind of get stuck on the side of the road and end up in this very odd house. And the big issue of this house is not only are they locked in the house with a serial killer outside, there are also a lot of strange happenings inside this house, and they don't really know what is going on or how they're going to get out of being trapped in this house, and insanity ensues. This book would be found in the Christian fiction section if you want to find it, but it's kind of written in a point of view where you don't necessarily have to be a Christian to read this book. It's definitely more about action and the thriller aspect of it. It's kind of a supernatural thriller, if you will. So I'm a Christian, so I might view this a little different than maybe somebody that's not a Christian would view it, but I think everybody could enjoy this book if you do indeed like creepy books, because this is a creepy book. It's not terrifying, you're not sitting there being terrified, but it definitely has some creepy elements to it. I highly enjoyed this book. I had really short chapters. The action really upped, like every second of this book, like the action went up. You're sitting there like going, wow, I did not think it could get worse for these people, and then it did. So I definitely found a lot of excitement in reading this book. This book actually kind of got me out of what I called slow reading syndrome, which is the cousin to the reading slump. It's like you're not in a reading slump, you're reading, but you're reading excruciatingly slow. And this definitely was a fast-paced read that got me out of my slow reading syndrome, because I had to know what was going to happen next, and it was just super exciting. And I gave this one 5 stars. So in August, I'm going to try to kind of go with the flow on my to be read. I don't really have a set to be read for August, just because there are some books that I need to complete that I'm currently reading. I'm currently reading 4 books, and I want to just make sure that I'm completing those before I add any more to be reads to the pile, because I still have a few from last month that I need to read. One that I'm almost halfway done with is my reread of American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I realized that I totally forgot this book, and I want to reread it before the TV series comes out next year, so I'm definitely close to finishing this. I also have 3 books that I'm reading that I just need to get my act together and finish, because I have been reading them for flipping ever. So the main one is, of course, The Clockwork Angel. Yeah, it has taken me like a month to even get a quarter of the way through this book. Not because I don't like it, just because I had slow reader syndrome, people. I also have started the audiobook of The Girl on the Train, so I'm going to try to complete The Girl on the Train. And then I also just need to get my act together on finishing L'Amour d'Arthur. Yeah, it's Old English, making it not really a fast read. It's taken me like 6 months to just get to like page 30, and I just feel like I need to sit down and maybe try to read at least once a week a few chapters of this book, because I do want to finish it. I don't want to just sit and look at its beautifulness. I do want to read it. So I'm just gonna try to nip all the current reads in the bud, or at least get halfway through some of them before the end of the month. And yeah, then I'll play it by ear. That was my July wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about some of these books. Oh, and by the way, if you have read American Gods or are also reading American Gods and you don't mind listening to music with lyrics while reading your book, I have made a music to read by book playlist for this, or started one, because I'm trying to add more of the songs that are actually mentioned in this book to that playlist. So it's kind of in construction, but it is mostly complete. So if you want to listen to some music that's kind of related to this book, I will leave the link to the YouTube playlist in the description, and you can listen to it. I think that is it for today. I feel like I've been just talking and talking and talking, so I'm gonna sign off from my babbling, and I will see you next week. Thank you for watching.